Welcome to this edition of Consciousness Raising Online. I'm not going to be long today, at least I hope not, but I do want to emphasize a couple of things. One is that over the next weeks, and I don't know how many weeks it'll be, I want to definitely uh, deal with facts and information that will aid us in dealing with this virus and the disease and the effects because it is affecting us all. Even those of us that think, well, it doesn't really don't really affect me right now. The fact is that it will. Um, just a couple of things before I get into the two basic areas I want to deal with today. As I look around the landscape, and you can do it as well, certain things that we're seeing that are just mind-boggling. Um, it, Here in where I am in Illinois, in Chicago, one of the things that the governor has done, which is really interesting, he asked that retired medical people make themselves known to uh, medical facilities to work because that's one of the things that's just beginning to be understood here in this country is what it means when medical facilities and personnel are overwhelmed. And that's happening for two reasons. One is the number of people who are infected, who are citizens, and the number of people who are medical workers who are becoming infected, treating the people who are coming to the hospitals and other medical places for treatment. You see, that's what makes it uh, so difficult to deal with. See, if the people who are treating become infected, then that cuts the number of people who can be treated because now they're in the midst. Um, and we're seeing it everywhere. We're not just seeing the people, citizens. We're seeing first responders being firemen, police, uh, uh, ambulance drivers, the EMTs. Understand what is happening is that it is affecting us all. Your particular area may not be um, as affected as other areas, but it's coming. Um, the political authorities are scrambling, trying to deal with it. Some better than others, but part of the problem, of course, is the present resident is useless. Since they've got these stay-at-homes and cutting down on the public, what they call it, keep your distance, social distancing, they call it. I call it keep your distance. Um, it doesn't allow him to have his big rallies. So what he has substituted for those are daily so-called press conferences where he gets up and talks nonsense. And it's insane. It's insane. Uh, the mass media has to deal with it. They have to show it to us. But even they're getting to a point where it is so ridiculous and so insane, they, it's getting to a point where they can hardly keep themselves straight faced. In fact, some of the present resident's people, Dr. Fauci the other day, right there behind him, you could see him break face because of what the dude is saying. So we got that issue. Um, but one of the main problems, at least for our communities, is this. So many of us work in capacities that are necessary for cleaning, for serving people, uh, for feeding people, that we have to go to work. We have to go. Ain't no staying home, uh, because we do the things that so many of the things that, like I say, keep the society functioning, even when it's under duress, like now. Um, I liken this to a worker version of a play called Day of Absence, and we did this. You know, we did this play 40 years ago, 40 years ago at least. But now it's come back in various places and had resurgence. But Day of Absence is a one act play. I think it was one act. Yeah, I guess it was one act play where what one day what happens is the white people woke up and all the black people had disappeared. And so throughout the play, it's effectively showing how white people cannot function without us because we do all the work. And then at the end of the play, we just magically come back. And so it was meant as an illustration, but also meant as a warning. Well, in a way, what we've got now is a workers' version of Day of Absence. You see, if we don't come to work and we don't do the things that are necessary for let's be real, for most white people to eat, to get cleaned up, uh, whether it be public areas where when you look, a lot of the folks doing this cleaning, when they talk about deep cleaning and cleaning for the virus, a lot of them is us because we the ones doing that work. So if we don't come to work, or if we're sick and can't come to work, or if we don't have the money to get to work, what do you think is going to happen then? So it's a lot of things going on, and we they keep talking about people living check to check, as if there's any other way than that. We don't know no other way than majority of us live check to check. And plus now they talking about this whole thing of supposedly getting the government's supposed to be sending out these checks like for $1,000 or something like that. All I say is this: don't count that money before you get the check and you cash it and it's cleared. It ain't gonna be tomorrow. Trust me. Plus $1,000. You know, don't think of it as reparations because it ain't no reparations. Um, Let me see what else did I want to mention. Okay. And keep your sense of humor. That don't mean laugh at stuff that ain't funny, but have the capacity to laugh at what is funny. That about this is crazy. Okay, like the toilet paper thing. You know, um, I'm not really sure how to explain that, but I do know that many of us have a fear. Many of us have a fear of running out of toilet paper. And so apparently that fear is a lot more widespread than we would have thought because all across the country, people, they buying up toilet paper before they buy food. That's a little bit crazy to me. Although I did get some extra rolls. Um, but I want to talk about two things. One is something that came up recently, um, that is really kind of deep. Now, one of the things that tends to happen is that there is always there's always um, how do I want to put this? There's always the problems of the folks that are hell bent on race war. Some people call them white supremacists. I don't call them white supremacists because they're not supreme. But I'm talking about the right wing racists, white racists, whites, white right wingers, whatever name you want to call them. For the moment, let me deal with what they're called by federal law enforcement because recently a document became public where federal law enforcement reveals that white supremacists discussed using coronavirus as a bioweapon. Now uh, 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 here's the document that you're seeing. I don't know if you can read it clearly, but here's the deal. They discussed plans to weaponize coronavirus via saliva, a spray bottle, or laced items. This was according to a weekly intelligence brief distributed by a federal law enforcement division on February 17th. Now, apparently, federal investigators are monitoring the white nationalist communications on Telegram. That's an encrypted messaging app that has become popular with neo Nazis. In the conversations, the white supremacists suggested targeting law enforcement agents and non white people with attacks designed to infect them with the coronavirus. Here's a quote. Violent extremists continue to make bioterrorism a popular topic among themselves, and that's in the intelligence brief written by the Federal Protective Service, which covered the week of February 17th through the 24th. White racially motivated violent extremists have recently commented on the coronavirus, stating that it is an obligation to spread it should any of them contract the virus themselves. Now, the Federal Protective Service is part of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, those folks, is a law enforcement agency responsible for protecting buildings owned or leased by the federal government. The intelligence brief, marked for official use only, noted the white supremacists suggested targeting law enforcement and minority communities, with some mention of public places in general. According to the document, the extremists discussed a number of methods for coronavirus attacks, such as spending time in public with perceived enemies, leaving saliva on door handles at local FBI offices, spitting on elevator buttons, and spreading coronavirus germs in non white neighborhoods. Now, that should make you definitely think twice before you punch those elevator buttons, right? Um, in fact, I have been for a while uh, very circumspect about doing that. Um, I will either, especially since it's been winter, even if I don't have my gloves on, I would take my glove out and use the finger of the glove to cover my finger when I press the buttons on elevators. Um, and that was just for regular germs. So it doesn't hurt when anything is public, door handles, all kind of stuff. You have to be careful, period. But now, because of this coronavirus, we have to even be more careful. Okay. Um, the February document appears to show that at least some white nationalists were already taking the threat of the coronavirus seriously at a time when some in government were downplaying the threat. On February 26th, the present resident said that he expected the cases to go down to zero in the United States in a couple of days. Y'all remember that? Yeah, he did say that. And then at another point, he was even talking about it would be like a miracle. Man, talking out his behind. But now the intelligence agencies were already issuing ominous warnings about the virus in January and February. Um, Now the deal is that these white supremacists or nationalists, they're basically dealing with the siege culture philosophies of James Mason. He's a guy who wrote this series of newsletters titled Siege in the 1980s that advocated for acts of racial terrorism in order to hurry up a war that would cause the breakdown of society. Now, in recent years, his writings have become very popular with the Atomwaffen Division, that's a neo Nazi group, and his offshoots. Apparently, he's still alive, but he doesn't comment. But he's very popular amongst uh, these neo Nazis. And if you think the neo Nazis are a joke, what I say is this: um, look at certain things. For an example, the the oh, not just that they're buying guns, they're buying ammunition by the ton. That's been um, one of the things that they've been talking about a lot for months. They've been saying focus on buying ammo. Why ammo? Because the ammo, according to them, is going to be the first thing that disappears, that will be confiscated. That's what they're pushing. That the idea is that the the ammunition. So they say, oh yeah, 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 let's get this ammunition right now. Okay. So we have to make sure. How can I put this delicately? We have to make sure that we're aware of what's going on. Okay. Now, even in the media, when they talk to these people that are at the gun stores and stuff buying all this ammo, some of them very outright and saying, uh, "Well, I expect that with um, the virus getting worse, that people are going to be trying to take my groceries when I go to the grocery store. So I need anti-tank weapons." No, you know who they're talking about, right? Yeah, and it shows you that they understand that this is not no short-term deal. This stuff ain't gonna clear up in a week, you know. And what should concern us is this: there's been this love affair for the last years about zombies and about how to kill zombies. Okay, and some folks thought, oh, that's just entertainment. Look, there's never just entertainment. Who are the zombies? Well, if you listen to them talk amongst themselves, ghetto folks are zombies. Whatever they determine or they see or perceive as ghetto people, to them they're zombies. So they don't have no problem about shooting them in the head. Is that how you kill a zombie? You got to shoot them in the head. So don't play past this. I'm telling you. So um, that's something that we have to be serious about. Okay. Now, I kept trying to figure out what would be the proper way to deal with this issue. I don't want to be an alarmist, and I don't want to seem to be an extremist, but I do have, I believe, an obligation to share facts so that you can discern the truth for yourself. And actually, I came across a really beautifully written piece by somebody named Jonathan Smith, and I wanted to share a few things from what he wrote because I think it can give us some guidance. Um, it says, "Hey everybody, as an infectious disease epidemiologist, epidem, epidemiologist, that's right, although a lowly one, at this point I feel morally obligated to provide some information on what we are seeing from a transmission dynamic perspective and how they apply to the social distancing measures. Like any good scientist, I have noticed two things that are either not articulated or not present in the literature of social media. I am also tagging my much smarter infectious disease epidemiologist friends for peer review of this post. Please correct me if I'm wrong, seriously. Specifically, I want to make two aspects of these measures very clear and unambiguous. First, we are in the very infancy of this epidemic's trajectory. That means even with these measures, we will see cases and deaths continue to rise globally, nationally, and in our own communities in the coming weeks. Our hospitals will be overwhelmed, and people will die that didn't have to. This may lead some people to think that the social distancing measures are not working. They are. They may feel that they're futile. They aren't. You will feel discouraged. You should. This is normal in chaos. But this is also normal epidemic trajectory. Stay calm. This enemy we are facing is very good at what it does. We are not failing. We need everyone to hold the line as the epidemic inevitably gets worse. This is not my opinion. This is the unforgiving math of epidemics for which I and my colleagues have dedicated our lives to understanding with great nuance. And this disease is no exception. We know what will happen. I want to help the community brace for this impact. Stay strong and with solidarity, knowing with absolute certainty that what you are doing is saving lives, even as people begin getting sick and dying. You may feel like giving in. Don't. That's deep. That's deep when you think about it. And it's important, I believe, because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it is going to get worse. That's not being what I'm saying is not being extremist. It's being realistic because that's the truth. Why do you think all these places, all these cities and states are shutting down? They're not doing this just to bring in martial law. They're doing it because there's a serious danger. Okay? And even though it may not be in your block yet, yeah, this is where it really gets deeper. Okay? Listen carefully. Second, although social distancing measures have been, at least temporarily, well received, there is an obvious but overlooked phenomenon when considering groups such as families in transmission dynamics. While social distancing decreases contact with members of society, it of course increases your contacts with group members such as family members. This small but obvious fact has surprisingly profound implications on disease transmission dynamics. Study after study demonstrates that even if there's only a little bit of connection between groups, such as social dinners, play dates, playgrounds, etc., the epidemic trajectory isn't much different than if there was no measure in place. The same underlying fundamentals of disease transmission apply, and the result is that the community is left with all of the social and economic disruption but very little public health benefit. You should perceive your entire family with you should perceive your entire family to function as a single individual unit. If one person puts themselves at risk, everyone in the unit is at risk. Seemingly small social change get large and complex with alarming speed. If your son visits his girlfriend and you later sneak over for coffee with a neighbor, your neighbor is now connected to the infected office worker that your son's girlfriend's mother shook hands with. That sounds silly, but it's not. I'm going to say it again. If your son visits his girlfriend and you later sneak over for coffee with a neighbor, your neighbor is now connected to the infected office worker that your son's girlfriend's mother shook hands with. This is not a joke or a hypothetical. We as epidemiologists see it borne out in the data time and time again, and no one listens. Conversely, any break in that chain breaks disease transmission along that chain. In contrast to hand washing and other personal measures, social distancing measures are not about individuals. They are about societies working in unison. These measures also take a long time to see the results. It is hard to conceptualize how one quick little get together can undermine the entire framework of a public health intervention, but it does. You can't cheat it. People are already itching to cheat on the social distancing precautions just a little. A play date, a haircut, or picking up a needless item at the store, etc. From a transmission dynamic standpoint, this very quickly recreates a highly connected social network that undermines all of the work the community has done so far. Think about it, because that's just how it works. Um, there's a family in New Jersey. The matriarch just died the other day. When she died, she didn't even know that two of her children had already died, and or three of her children had already died, and I think four or five other members of the family were in the hospital ill. Now, this is a family it's an Italian family. They get together on Sundays, all of for family dinner and stuff. Kind of like that TV show. What is it about the police in New York? Irish family. They get together and have dinner together. You see, That's one of those situations where all it takes is one of the family members to be infected, and they're sitting up there at dinner together, and before you know it, three-quarters of that family is infected. And then they come down with the disease. And let me be clear, because some people are not understanding this. The virus is called the coronavirus. The disease that it causes is called COD. What is it? Well, COVID 19. That's the disease that is caused by the virus. Okay. See, because there's plenty of viruses. There are viruses. The common cold is considered to be a coronavirus. The disease that it causes, in this case, uh, the disease is COVID 19. All right. So the conclusion of what he says is this. Um, my goal in writing this is to prevent communities from getting sucker punched by what the epidemiological community knows will happen in the coming weeks. It will be easy to be drawn to the idea that what we are doing isn't working and become paralyzed by fear, or to cheat a little bit in the coming weeks. By knowing what to expect and knowing the importance of maintaining these measures, my hope is to encourage continued community spirit, strategizing, and action to persevere in this time of uncertainty. Now, in particular, I want to say this because as Black people, we know that we're going to be the last to get uh, certain information and the last to get certain help. Whereas we are at the same time needed to do the cleaning and the cooking and the washing. In Chicago, for an example, they've ordered all the restaurants to close to in dining, but they can still have drive through and pickup. Well, in some cases, the folks that's doing that cooking and cleaning and all of that is us. Um, in many medical institutions, the help, which is the nurses and the what do you call them? Well, the janitors and the cleanup people. And see, cleaning up has become very, very important. People don't turn their nose up at the cleaners now because the cleaners are the people who clean up are needed. And we ain't just talking about mopping the floor. We're talking about sanitizing places. All right. So I want us to understand that our family members, our friends, they're being called to work, and sometimes they're being called to work with number one, without enough equipment, without proper equipment. Um, and so they may be being put in jeopardizing positions. And then when they come home, they're coming home with the virus. I think that we need to make sure we can help them. For an example, in some cases, uh, we may need to set up an area in the house where when people come home, they can go into like a separate room uh, and take off all their clothes, put those clothes in a bag, and be able to go straight into a shower and take those clothes and immediately put them in the washer, if that's possible. certain kinds of measures that need to be taken to make sure that everybody in the family is protected. Whatever is necessary, figure it out. Whatever we need to do. And the idea of, oh, it doesn't affect me, trust me, that's the fastest way to end up dead or dying, or people that you know and love are dead or dying. You know, for a while it was being assumed that only older people would are being affected. Then they started having younger people dying, and then now it's turning out that according to the numbers, more men are dying than women. And these are things that they're steadily coming up with, finding out or whatever, and don't know why. Okay, young people in particular. You know, and I understand it's like, hey, when we were young, we knew we couldn't die. We were gonna live forever. Um, this virus doesn't care about none of that. When I saw all these people in the airports, that was that was just unbelievable to me. And this was in airports. I think it was 18 airports around the country that were designated as the places for people to coming back into the country was supposed to go through. And they did these people the exact wrong thing that they were busy telling people not to do. Don't be in crowds. These people were crowded in these airports for hours. First hours trying to get their luggage, and then hours trying to get checked in. So look at it this way. This guaranteed that there was going to be such an uptick in the numbers of people who were then going to become positive. It was a wrap. It was a wrap. You could almost feel it when you look at those pictures. You can almost feel it. Whether they had a mask on or not. You know, the thing about the mask is it protects those that are outside of the mask. It doesn't really protect the people who are wearing the mask. It protects if you are infected and you have on a mask, your mask is protecting people that you come across. Okay, understand how this really works. And then to be so crazy, what is it that they're arguing about? The different cities and states. They can't get enough masks. They can't get enough of the devices that people need to breathe. It's insane. It's insane. And again, when the workers, the medical technicians, when they can't get what they need to properly take care of people, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? I'm telling y'all, it's crazy. So I don't know what else to tell y'all. I just know this. We have got to work together, right? We got to work together. We got to help each other. But we definitely got to understand what's going on. Pay attention. And I started saying this weeks ago that the world as we have known it is gone. And it's the truth. It's the truth. We are not going to. We're not going to go back to how it was before. We just aren't. It's the truth. Um, I hate to say it like that, but it's the truth. Um, we have gone to a whole nother era, a whole nother world. Okay, and it is going to be challenging. It's going to be. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a while, but we can do this if we understand that we can help each other. Okay, I will be here every week, and this is going to be, of course, this is recorded, so you can go back and listen to it again, or you can also share it with other people so they can. In particular, when he talks what the young man talked about. Okay. Um, as always, I close by saying, no justice, no peace, no love, KNOW. And you never knew how crazy this year was going to be. It's like, man, it's still only what? It's still only March, third month in the year. Ain't that crazy? All right, peace.